Hello, everyone. My name is Ebun Lufadeju. I'm a clinical mental health pharmacist, and I'm so excited to introduce to you a new and exciting podcast called Health in the City. So today, I'm joined with a special guest who will introduce herself very shortly. And the topic today is going to be about mind health and everything that concerns the mind. So if you could please introduce yourself.
Hello, thank you, Ebun. My name is Annabel Gold, and I'm a clinical psychologist. I have studied psychology for a very long time now. I studied psychology with counselling skills for my undergraduate degree. Then I went on to do my master's in clinical psychology. Throughout the years, I've worked with many different people who have struggled with psychological illnesses and difficulties. I've worked in pupil referral units. I've worked in mental health homes for young people and for adults. So, my whole life so far has just been around mind health, mental health, psychological well-being, and, how to enhance that. So I'm very happy to be here on this podcast.
Wow, I'm very happy to have you. And just from hearing you speak, I can hear your passion. So I was kind of thinking, what could our first episode be about? And I thought mind health, because it just affects everybody. It affects so many people.
Yeah.
We see it all over the news. I think the cases have gone up. Recently, I read that mental health actually affects 1 in 4 of the UK population.
Yeah.
So this is definitely something that we should be talking about. But I'm going to ask you this. Okay. I recently saw one of your posts. You spoke about mind health versus mental health. Could you please explain that a little bit?
Okay, so this is something that has been on my mind for a very long time. Now, we refer to it as mental health.
Yeah.
But I had a bit of a problem with that. Why? I just wanted to do a survey of what it means to hear mental and then what it means to hear mind. And when I carried out that survey, I found that mental was quite disabling. It was quite stigmatizing.
Right.
So, for example, if I asked you what came to mind when you heard the word mental, what would you say?
If I'm being honest, I would think of words like depression, anxiety.
So automatically it's negative. Right? Because from the survey, there was a lot of feedback that, the words that that would come to mind would be psycho or insane. And mental has become almost an adjective that people can describe people.
Yes.
And so when I then posed the word mind, what came to people's, mind is thoughts, function, refreshing,
yes.
cognition,
correct.
Thought processes, the way people think. And so from that survey, I, came to this conclusion that I think mind health would be a better way to refer to that industry instead of mental health. And so that's why I now call it mind health. I think it's more light, it's more clean, it's refreshing, it's more welcoming, because when you hear mental health, I think it's a bit of a taboo. Everybody wants to run away from speaking about it. However, when you look at mind health, you would accept it because, it's to do with the mind. It's a function. And, we had a talk the other day. I believe you was on that panel as well.
Very amazing talk hosted by Dr. Annabel.
Exactly. And from that talk, we kind of came to the conclusion that the mind is something that I have, not what has me.
Right.
So I am the owner of my mind, and, I'm in control, and I can be in control of my mind. So that is the whole, gist behind mind health and mental health.
Definitely. I love that. And I'm going to ask you something. So for somebody who is new to hearing the term mind health, what would you say a mind is? What if I say, okay, my mind's health, what are you speaking about? Okay,
so when we're talking about mind health, honestly, without the mind, the body cannot function.
Right.
Have you ever noticed that when you're exercising, it is a physical activity? However, most of that activity actually takes your mind.
I have one comment on this, because this is something that I've been thinking about recently, the power of the mind. And the fact that you just said that, I'm like, okay, 100% spot on, because recently I was actually in the gym. And I've been using this story quite often. And I was doing a certain weight, 25 kg chest press. And I wanted to go up. I was like, okay, I think it's time to move up.
Go up?
Because I believe in progress.
Okay.
I believe in progression. I think that if you're doing something, whether it be physical or anything, I believe that there should be some sort of progress to it, because even in life, we have education, we have so many things that we're constantly trying to learn and constantly trying to get better. True. I think that's human nature. Yeah. So I was doing it at 25 kg and I said, I want to go up today. So I moved it up. The next weight was 32 kg. And initially, I felt that I physically could, like, it was impossible. And you know, when you're in the gym, it can be quite, it can be a lot, because you see these big guys and they're pushing these weights. And you're like, okay, how are they doing this? But I think first of all, it's important not to compare yourself and to go at your own pace. But back to the story. So I pushed it up to 32 kg, and initially it was as if I cannot do it. Physically, it was impossible. But then it's almost as if my mind was having a conversation with my body, and my mind told my body, you can push it. Yeah. So somehow I gathered enough strength and was able to do it. So then the next time I went, I'm doing 32, and then so on and so on, so forth. So back to what you were saying, sorry to cut you off.
No, that's fine, but that's just a clear example of, you know, the necessity of our minds. Literally, without the mind, your body cannot function. Yeah. It's the mind, that's where all the messages are. That's where all the magic happens. Can I say that? Correct. And so when we talk about mind health, we're talking about your intellectual capability. We're talking about your emotions. We're talking about willpower. We're talking about everything that you're able to do in life. It first starts with your mind. It's not body first.
Okay, I love that. And I would ask you this question. So the same way somebody, I think as humans, let me say it like this, we're very concerned about the outer, how we look on the outside. Physical, we're concerned about the clothes we wear, and we're concerned about how we look. You know, women, we want to look nice.
Social media has a big part to play.
We'll get to that. I have questions on that, so we'll get to that. But we're very concerned with how we look on the outside. And I think one thing that I've realized with mental health, mind health, I'm going to try and call it mind health.
I know it's difficult. It is difficult,
because I'm so used to saying mental health. But I've realized that mind health does not have a look. So for instance, somebody can, I used to work in community pharmacy, and when I was first starting out in my pre-registration year, I didn't know about antidepressants. I mean, I knew what I learned from university, but I didn't know about how it affects so many people. So people would walk in and, you know, they would look fine. And then they would be on prescriptions. And I'll ask myself questions like, how did it get there? You know, because people can be in good jobs, and you hear about suicide rates in people that work in the city is just at an all-time high, especially in COVID. So what causes a bad mind, if I can say that?
Okay. Well, something I do want to do is give an example. You can't see air, but it's very impactful.
Right.
When the wind blows, you don't see it. You can feel it. The only time you do see the wind is when it affects something else. Right. So, for example, the trees would move, right? It's the same with your mind. Your mind is made up of many thoughts. In fact, in a day, we get about 50 to 70,000 thoughts a day. That is a lot, I know. And that's about 3,000 thoughts per hour. Yeah. So you can imagine there's a lot that goes on in our mind. But we don't see all of that. We see it in behaviors. Yes. We see it in interactions. We see it in engagements with other people. We hear it when we speak. So the mind and everything in the mind is quite silent, but very, very impactful. Right. So back to your question, which is, how do you know
what causes bad
mind health
or negative mind
health? There's a lot of factors. There's a lot of things. When we're born into such a world that's quite negative. We're born into environments that can be quite negative. There's a lot of people that go through a lot of things, a lot of traumas, childhood traumas, you know, and from the ages of 0 to 10, that that is where a lot of your development is happening with your brain. And so if there are circumstances which, are negative, if there's somebody that's being abused or, you're hearing a lot of bad words or you're being bullied, those things can impact you and impact the way you think.
Yeah.
So when we talk about mind health, it's the way you think. And, people can have negative thinking. And that can be as a result of, again, situations that have happened, negative words that they've heard over time, and also traumas, experiences that they've gone through that they're not able to overcome.
Okay, so from what you've just said, I've gathered that it stems from, there's something that causes it, particularly in development or life experiences. So my question as a pharmacist, in what I do, we're trained to treat with medication. And what I find so interesting about psychology is that you kind of try to get to the root cause or try to change behaviors or behavioral thinking. So my question is, do you think it's possible to change your thoughts? Do you think it's possible to overcome that negative thinking?
Completely. I think it is possible. Again, medication. I would want to ask you, what does the medication that you prescribe for those that have depression or anxiety or suffer with a mental illness, what does it treat? Okay,
so the thing about medication, a lot of medication doesn't actually cure, and it's that's why I believe in seeing your body as holistic, treating the mind, body, emotions, everything, because everything is connected. So, for example, before I go into the medication, I'll give an example about something like diabetes. So, diabetic medication, what it does is it just helps you. But if you continue to live a bad lifestyle, as in you don't exercise, you're eating bad food, bad sugar, all of these things, it's not going to go away. And the body will eventually decay. But then I ask myself the question, what causes somebody to eat bad foods? What causes somebody to not take care of themselves? And like what you've just said, there's a root cause. It could be things like being overworked. There's emotional eating. Yeah. There's no lack of motivation. So we can't just treat, I've got diabetes. No, for me, I have to see the person as a whole. And look at, what factors in their life can we look at to help them? Yeah. But in terms of, let's say, antidepressants, what it actually does is there's a whole chemical process, but it increases the level of serotonin in the brain.
And we need serotonin to function.
Exactly. Okay. And there are ways
because serotonin is something that can actually enhance well-being.
It enhances well-being. Yeah. It improves mood as well. And there are other ways you can get it. So things like exercise, meditation, which we'll speak about.
Oh, please, we have to.
So there are natural ways to get that serotonin. And I'm going to speak about something. We mentioned social media briefly. So I did a bit of research and I saw that Instagram, out of all the social media platforms, is the worst for mental health. Why do you think that is?
Oh boy. We live in a visual world. I think now in our generation and in our time, everything is very visual. And so Instagram is very visual. Yep. I mean, as opposed to something like Twitter. Twitter is just words, even though you can post pictures and everything. But Instagram is very, very visual. You can post videos, pictures. Now there's reels. There's so many creative ways to showcase a lot of things. And on Instagram, we see lifestyles. We see things that, people may want. We see influencers that have somewhat a perfect life.
Okay.
And as we're watching those things, it's almost like meditating, actually.
Okay, wow.
So when we scroll on Instagram, we're actually meditating on the lifestyle that is portrayed to us.
Okay.
But we're not thinking about what may be going on with that person behind closed doors.
Right.
So automatically, when you see somebody portraying a lifestyle or something on Instagram, there can be something in you that is like, oh, I want that. And that's how it starts.
Okay, so there's almost that not being happy with your life, seeing somebody that perceivingly looks like they're doing well, and then those thoughts of comparison, of not feeling good enough, they kind of lead to affect
they would come in. And also, Instagram, we don't know how much of it is true.
That's true.
Because if I'm saying that Instagram is a way of meditating, we're meditating on lies then.
That's very true.
Maybe not all of it is lies, but could be the majority. We don't know.
Yeah.
You know?
And I think that sometimes in a busy lifestyle, it's hard to actually think.
It is very...
It's hard to break things down.
Especially if you live in London.
Especially if you live in London and you work full time, and then you've got other things that you need to do. And I want to get into healthcare professionals a bit later, but... Okay, so for somebody that's looking at social media, from your professional opinion, how do they stay positive? How do they not compare themselves? How does somebody become happy with their life? How are they able to deal with their life?
First of all, don't look for the likes.
Yeah.
Because you can become, especially as someone who's on Instagram, you can become so aware of wanting just likes and seeing the number of likes that you're getting as well. And so the first thing I would say is, don't look at the likes.
Yeah.
You know, if you want to post a picture or a video, post it because, you know, you want people to see something that's quite positive that you're doing. And that's it.
Okay.
Whether you get 5 likes or 500 likes, it doesn't matter. Don't be so consumed in that. Another thing is that there should be a time limit to how long you are on social media.
Right.
Because it is a form of meditation. It's you constantly looking. And the thing is, there are things that come up that you might not want to look at. I know there are ways that you can kind of filter through. And I would suggest that, as much as you can, do filter through. But it is so hard. There's so many ads that come up. Sponsored ads and everything that comes up without you even choosing. So it's almost like when you go on Instagram, you don't really have that much of a choice.
And you don't have control.
Or control,
That's right.
You don't have much of a control. But I would say clean it as much as you can. Filter through. And don't spend too much time on there, because sometimes it can be just so unproductive. It's so addictive as well. And I'm sure you would have some ways on how it's very, very addictive. I know that when you post something or when you see a like or whatever, there's a release. You know, there's a release of dopamine or something like that. And it's almost like a drug.
It is, and it can be very addictive. And I think about Instagram and things like social media for the younger generation. So when we were growing up, we didn't have that. We didn't have social media to run to.
We socialized.
And I was thinking about that. We actually played outside.
Yep,
we knocked on
my
doors.
front door was always open.
Exactly.
There was no fear about, you know, being kidnapped or being, you know, injured or anything.
Or that I'm going to lose my phone, or that somebody's going to steal my phone.
We used to go to the recreation center,
and we
used
played.
to play. We actually embraced social contact
and relationships. And I was thinking about that. Okay, so we were able to do that, but the younger generation not so much. I think I've seen so many examples of children crying, and you know, it's very quickly the parent gives them an iPad to play with. And I'm not here to speak about anybody's parenting skills, but I feel like as time has progressed, we're in such a generation that is very social media based, very technology based, and I believe that it does have a positive part to play. Things like platforms like this were able to speak positively, but also there are negative connotations to it. Yeah. So I do believe that social media is affecting us negatively. And there's something you said actually that I want to touch on, and it's about real relationships. Instagram and Facebook friends, it's not real.
Followers and...
I think we have to get that into our heads, that it is not real. Somebody can click like on your picture. It doesn't mean they like you. It doesn't mean
somebody can follow you. It doesn't mean they're actually following you. And they could be very jealous of you.
Very jealous. Yeah. And I was reading a book actually, and it was speaking about how now people that are very stressed at work, what they do is they use negativity, like spreading negativity on Twitter and on all sorts of platforms to get off their steam, let off their steam. So I'm thinking, if we base our lives on other people, on a platform that is not real, it's social, it's media. Media means inflation, it means hype, it means the overdoing it. It's not real.
They over-exaggerate. Media does
exactly.
over-exaggerate.
It's not real.
Breaking news is always over the top.
Over the top, so negative. And during this COVID time, I remember last year working in the pharmacy, so many people were so anxious.
But do you know what? Do you know why that was? Media had a big part to play in that.
I agree.
Because when you hear on the news, breaking news, there's a pandemic, you know, people are dying, you see the statistics all the time, automatically everybody's going to panic. And I remember there was a time where people were panicking so much to even go and get the last bit of toilet roll.
I'm telling
fighting
you,
over toilet roll and everything. It was
the queues were so long.
It was crazy.
The queues were so long just before lockdown.
Yeah,
people were queuing up outside.
I remember
paracetamol run out, ibuprofen run out, the toilet, everything had hand sanitizer. Yeah. You couldn't get it anywhere.
So they overbought, they overconsumed.
Yeah, because of that perceived threat. There was a perceived fear.
Yeah.
You know, not that it wasn't real, obviously, but like there would have been ways to deal with it.
So like you said, the media really over-exaggerates.
Yeah.
Really, really does.
Yeah. I want to get on to my next question, actually. So, Health in the City, we speak to a lot of healthcare professionals. We do events and all of those things for people that want to get into the healthcare profession. What I've found is that a lot of healthcare professionals are burnt out. From pharmacists to nurses to doctors to everyone. And I think the last year has really, really caused a greater impact on that.
Definitely.
And I think sometimes when you're so used to looking after other people, and I think I've kind of struggled with this at times as well. You're used to being the one that needs to look after other people.
Yeah.
But then
So therefore you have to be strong.
Exactly. And you kind of suffer mentally in your mind because you're burnt out. So I would ask this question to you, and I'll pose it like this. Okay, so why do healthcare professionals burn out? I mean, obviously there's long hours and things like that, but why do they burn out, and how do you deal with that or stop that from happening?
Okay. Burning out is, I feel like it's subjective. I think for every individual it is different.
Yeah.
For example, somebody like you may be able to take on much more than I can, or vice versa. So I think it's very important as a healthcare professional to understand and know your capacity.
Right.
Know what you can take and know what you can't take. And you have to be very honest with yourself. Because if you're not honest with yourself, you won't be honest with those that may be giving you certain tasks. So it's very important to be able to understand you, know what you can handle, especially per time. So in one season, you may be able to handle a lot. And you'll be fine. But then in another time, you just may need a bit more free time and free space.
Yeah.
And in terms of doing that, again, we're going to go back to mind health and being more aware. Awareness is such a powerful thing.
What being aware of what exactly?
Aware of my mind.
Okay.
Aware of myself. So in my mind, there's, again, so much things going on. But if I can develop the practice of being aware of the thoughts that are going on, especially towards everything that I'm doing, why I'm doing what I'm doing, and that's a major one as well.
Yes,
it's
I
good.
agree.
You have to understand why you're doing what you're doing. Somebody like me, I've always had that passion to want to help people mentally. I've also had my own struggles of having depression and struggling with suicide. And so that was also another why for me. And that's the reason why I've never kind of come away from that path at all. Okay. And I don't desire to be honest, because I understand why I'm doing what I'm doing. And so sometimes the why might even start, but then you have to continue to understand why as well. Why you're doing what you're doing is so important, because it's almost like that energy. That's the energy. That's the fuel to do what you're doing, you know, as a healthcare professional.
I definitely agree with that. And I think also there's a lot of demands that come with the job and with other jobs as well. So definitely understanding why would help a lot, because it's almost as if there's a purpose behind it. Because if there's not,
Yeah.
it would just become a job. It will just become a 9 to 5, and then that will
It's so
exhaust
important.
you.
Yeah,
Literally.
yeah.
So I
Because
actually
there'll
had
be
to,
no fuel. What would be the fuel then?
there's none, because
Yeah.
you go out and you exert all your energy, and there's nothing. You're not feeding yourself with anything. So I
It's
think
like driving a car without petrol.
basically, and it's just making that sound. And eventually it's going to break down,
Yeah,
literally.
yeah.
So I think similar to you, I decided to leave community pharmacy because I did not get that satisfaction from it. I felt like I was literally going to work, doing the same thing, standing up for 10 hours. And again, it's for some people, it will suit them. But for me, I had to find something that was more rewarding.
Yeah.
And that's why I moved to mental health, because I felt that I could actually make a difference. I felt that it was an opportunity to learn. I felt that it was an opportunity to grow. So I don't think that. I think actually what I think is this: as healthcare professionals, we limit ourselves.
Yeah.
Because it's kind of, you have a title.
Okay.
You have this title.
Okay. And you have to operate based on that title. Yeah.
So it's like, as a pharmacist, it began to be, that's what I am.
Do you know, I've got an interesting thought behind that, which is if you strip down all the titles, so you may be a mother, you may be a sister, a brother or a daughter, a clinical mental health pharmacist, a clinical psychologist, a psychologist, a mental health nurse. You may be all of those things, but if you strip away all of those titles, who are you left with?
That is my number one question. I say that all the time. I love it because it is so true. Because if somebody asks you, who are you? Initially, you'll say, I'm a psychologist. I'm a
and
doctor.
the thing is, we in daily life,
Yeah.
we ask that question.
Yeah.
But it's, what are you doing with yourself now?
Exactly. And
That's
if you're
how the
not
question
doing
is posed.
something
Yeah.
with yourself, that causes anxiety because you feel that you should be doing something with yourself. But not necessarily. There may be moments in your life that you just need to recuperate. I don't think there's a right way to live. There's no like this is the rule book. I have to go through these steps. I have to go through this stage. No, because I think if you've been a doctor for 10 years and you decide, listen, I'm done, I want to go and now study psychology, or I want to go and travel. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think there has to be that heart-to-heart conversation, and your mind has to be in a good place, and you have to do what it takes to get there. Because if your mind is not right and you're trying to help other people, eventually I don't think it will end well.
So that's why I always talk about awareness and spending time with yourself. So, many times we can book appointments with each other. We can book appointments to the dentist or, doctor's appointment. But do we book appointments with our mind?
I love that.
And that's a special question to me, because the mind is so important. The mind is so fragile. It's basically you.
It is.
And in that mind, it's just so important to be aware. And so what I like to do is book appointments with my mind.
Wow.
And so
that.
another question is, for everybody, is, have you met your mind?
Do you know your mind?
Do you know your mind?
What does your mind like?
Exactly.
Wow,
and
I love that.
And the thing is with that is, the mind is a function that can wander, because again, it's been shaped, it's been programmed, especially based on, our childhood and everything. So the mind can wander, but you can take control of that mind. It's just about being aware and being mindful.
That brings me on to my next question. So I think many people would have seen the word meditation, mindfulness, and, help books and all sorts of websites say, okay, it's good to meditate. What is meditation for those that don't know, and how do you do it?
Okay. Meditation is quite simple. It just means to think. It just means to think. If we want to look at the definition of it, to meditate is just to think.
Okay.
But believe it or not, we do meditate without even wanting to, or without even knowing it.
Yeah, I can imagine.
So the mindfulness and meditation that I'm for is the one that you have control of.
Okay.
So there's something called mindfulness, which is it has very old principles from the religion of from the Buddhist religion. But there's a man who brought it into the Western culture. And so what you'll see is that there are therapies such as mindfulness-based cognitive therapy and mindfulness-based therapy. And the idea behind mindfulness is that you're focusing on the present moment. And so you're not thinking about the past, you're not thinking about the future, but you're just enjoying and experiencing the fullness of the present moment. So as I'm sitting here with you, I'm mindfully having this conversation with you. I'm looking at the way you're responding to me. I'm aware of how I'm responding to you. I'm looking at your eye contact, your body language. I'm actually enjoying this conversation. So I'm thinking about it. You know, I'm fully here. Yeah. Even though there can be a thought that comes right now that says, oh, you're hungry.
Okay.
But guess what I do? I just ignore it and I come back and bring myself back into the present moment. So that's the whole idea behind mindfulness. And I think it's such a powerful tool of meditation because it's you practicing how to be more in control of your mind, of your thinking, of meditation. And so mindfulness is a practice that you can do literally as you wherever you are. You can mindfully eat. You can mindfully breathe. You can mindfully watch TV. You can mindfully talk to a friend. And so your question was, how do I? Okay, for example, I'm a nurse. I've come back from a very long shift. I'm about to go to bed, but I want to meditate. Okay. How do I shut off everything that has happened in the day? Maybe, there was not enough staff on the wards, and I know tomorrow there's not going to be enough staff. So I'm already worried and thinking, oh my God, I've got to do a double shift. How, in the moment, do I shut everything off? Okay. Well, you can first find a quiet spot. Come away from all the noise. Your mind is already going to be very noisy.
Stay off this.
Forget the phone, dash it somewhere. No phones, no emails, no laptop, nothing. No tablets, no iPads, nothing. Get away from everything. No Netflix. So if you can just find a spot that is quiet, that's quite calm, there's not too much going on in that room or wherever, and just close your eyes. We could demonstrate it.
Okay, should we do it now?
Should we demonstrate it? So, so let's just close our eyes. And what I want you to do is just focus all your attention to your breathing. And you're going to look at the exhaling of it, the inhaling of it, the experience of it, the feeling of it. So, as you breathe, your chest is being raised, it's going in. So you're just bringing your mind to just your breathing. And guess what? As you're doing that, there will be thoughts that are coming in, but just ignore those thoughts and let it pass. So in this time, it's almost like you're watching your thoughts, right? You're watching it on a TV. So you can see the thoughts, oh, I'm hungry. Oh, what am I going to have for dinner? Oh, what's my husband going to do? Da, 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 da. Let it pass and bring yourself back to your breathing. So open our eyes.
Powerful.
So something like that is an example of mindfulness. That's mindful breathing. But it's a practice. It's not going to be clear straight away. So I feel like we have this notion that, I'm going to meditate and things are going to be fine straight away, or my mind is going to be clear. No, it's a practice. And I think what we discussed the other day is that you have to commit, you have to commit your whole life to wanting to have a clear mind or you have to commit to it.
I definitely agree with that. And what I noticed as we were doing that activity is that I could hear my breathing. I could feel my breathing.
And that's because I guided you to be able to do that.
Exactly. Yeah. And without that, I think you just think you breathe and then that's it. Yeah. But I could actually feel it happening. So with what you just said about it being a life committed to having a sound mind,
100%.
It's so important. And I think we have to think about our lives on a micro level. Yeah. So when I wake up, what is the first thing I do? When I go to work and I walk into a room of people speaking negatively, do I join in the negative conversation? Or do I leave the room and just say, oh, guys, no, let's be positive? Yeah. It has to go, you have to be almost finicky. Very finicky. And that focus might offend people. Yeah. It might offend people that you're choosing to live your life like this, but it's almost, it has to happen.
You have to guard to yourself. You really do. But then it goes back down to, what do you really want?
Yeah, that's true.
It really goes back down to that. I'll use myself as an example. I'm somebody that wants peace. I love it. I want a sound mind. I want a mind that is able to be clear, that I can think, so that I can imagine, so that I can produce and do better for myself. If that's what I want, then there's a price to pay.
There is. I think with everything, with progression, there is a price to pay.
Yeah, there is a price to pay.
So the same way in the gym, your muscles are, what they're actually doing is they're tearing and new muscles are being created, and it's a painful experience. I know sometimes when I leave the gym, if you miss that stretching, you're in pain for days.
Your muscles are like
it's
blue
the same
tack.
way with your mind. It's going to have to be, old ways are passing away, and the new way of doing things will have to be what we put into formation.
I mean, just look at it. If you put yourself in a situation that is new, if you experience something new, something is happening in your brain. It's called neuroplasticity. And that's the ability to form new neural connections within your brain. So, for example, if I learn a new language, I'm not going to obviously learn it in one day.
Exactly.
But I commit to learning that language. And as I'm committing to learning that new language, there is something happening in my mind, And that is just an example of how progression can be done, on how we can enhance our mind health.
Exactly. Okay, so literally we're actually running out of time. I've enjoyed this conversation so much.
Do you know what? We haven't covered everything.
We haven't. And I was thinking this whole time that we have to do part 2.
Yeah.
Sometime in the future,
I agree.
we have to
I think we should.
2.
I think we should do part 2.
Definitely. I have one more question.
Okay.
And this is, can I turn a negative thought into a positive one? Because the reason I ask this is this. Life happens.
Yeah.
Bad things happen.
Life is unfair.
Life is unfair. So I can be a good person and bad things can happen to me, or something that I don't like can happen to me. How do I, or can I, in that moment, turn a negative into a positive? What do you think?
Ooh. Do you know what helps with that? It's understanding. I think if somebody can understand the world that they're in, if they can understand fully, let's say a negative situation has happened, if they can understand that, let's look at a situation where somebody has done something wrong to you. Now, if in that moment you can understand that, okay, I don't think this person intentionally wanted to do wrong, and then maybe they haven't understood life. Maybe they've been hurt. Because guess what? It's hurt people that hurt people.
That's true.
So if you can have that understanding alone, you'll understand that, I can't take this personal. Or, I think understanding is very powerful, actually.
So understanding life, understanding situations.
Because life is not fair.
It's not. Understanding people as well.
Understanding people. If you can understand people and understand where they're at, and understand that not everybody is at the same level as you.
Okay.
So if you have, if you ever expect that somebody should behave in a certain way, that's because you behave like that. But you can't expect somebody else to have that same level of behavior.
Right.
Why? Because we're different people.
Exactly.
We're at different stages in our life. We're at different developmental stages as well.
Yeah.
So I think also our expectation of people has to be lowered.
Okay.
I
agree.
But definitely, if we can understand people, the way they work, the stage that they're at, if we can understand the life, the world that we're in as well, and how the world is a negative world. But again, I think it's about your lens. It's about your perspective. We all have different perspective. You can choose to have a positive perspective, and if everything bad is happening, you can only see see nothing but good.
Positive. Amazing.
So it's about perspective, definitely.
Amazing. So let's round up here, and
Okay.
I have one more thing to ask of you.
Okay.
If you can give me one line about mind health, what would you say?
Oh my gosh. One line.
One line. What would you want somebody to take away from this conversation?
Mind health. Your mind is your baby.
Okay.
Your mind is your garden. You're the gardener of your mind if you choose to be that person. And if you don't take control of your mind health, then someone else or something else will. So it's just that understanding that you can be in control of your mind. Your mind does not have to be something that has you. And yeah, mind health can be enhanced. It is possible.
Amazing. Thank you so much for that.
You're very
and
welcome.
I think what I would say to round up is that we have to understand that the mind does affect the body.
Yeah.
So we can't, I'm going to continue to say this, we can't focus on the body and not focus on our mind. So conversations like this are so necessary. I believe we'll definitely have a part 2 on with Dr. Gold. Definitely. I think it was amazing. I enjoyed this conversation.
I hope everyone else enjoyed it as well.
Thank you
so
for
having me.
Thank you so much for joining on the first episode. I believe it was a special one. I hope you all enjoyed. Follow us on social media. Share this out with everybody. And we're definitely going to be back for episode 2. We'll have a special guest on that. So thank you for watching and have a good day.
Take care.